Well, hello there. I want to take a few minutes and share with you a very personal story. Now, the relevance of this story lies in its relationship with the nature versus nurture argument. I had a brother named Daryl, whom we affectionately called Papa, and he died in 1987 from AIDS. Papa was 5 years younger than I, and he also had a twin sister named Diane, who thankfully is still with us. Anyway, Papa, as a young child, preferred to play with little girls' toys as opposed to playing with the boys. I remember how we used to tease him all the time because of this. We just couldn't understand why he was that way. Now, as my brother grew older, he began to develop many feminine mannerisms, and as a result, convinced some of his siblings, including myself, that he was gay. Keep this in mind, however, that in the community that I grew up in, it was not only a taboo to be gay, but it was also a taboo to openly have a discussion about homosexuality. But believe it or not, Papa actually got married when he reached 19. He married Renee, who was one of the neighborhood girls who grew up down the street. When this happened, many of us wondered whether or not Papa was really gay after all, since he married Renee. In fact, one of my sisters, Gina, she and I would sometimes gossip about Papa, hoping that his marriage was proof that he wasn't gay. This naive belief was reinforced when he and Renee had a son, my nephew Derek. It came about, however, that after a few years of marriage, he separated from his wife and apparently dived headfirst into the gay community. Now, over the next few years, I had little contact with my brother, even though we worked at the same phone company, but in different areas. But one day, a coworker told me that he had heard from some friends who also worked with my brother that Pop was absent frequently due to illness and that they believed he had AIDS. That evening, I was unable to contact Papa, but eventually, my father, who always felt tortured by having a gay son, told me Papa was in the hospital, although he would not tell me the reason. The next day, I visited him at Kaiser Hospital in Panorama City. I felt a deep pain when, as I arrived at his room, the notice on the door read, "Caution, we were about to enter an infectious area." Now keep in mind that this was in the mid-80s, and at that time there was a lot of uncertainty as to how people contacted AIDS. As I entered the room and greeted my brother, I quickly asked if he in fact had AIDS, and he responded that he did. Now, unlike the past, when I was afraid to discuss with my brother his sexual orientation, I was now at this time a student of sociology, and I wanted to know all I could about his thoughts. He seemed pleasantly surprised when I told him that when he got out of the hospital, I wanted to take him to dinner, for I had many questions to ask him. Now, when we finally got together, the first question I asked him was what he believed to be the cause of his homosexuality. His response blew me away. He first asked me if I remembered the days when we were kids and how we used to play hide and seek. He also asked me if I remembered Robert, the older teenager whom we all sort of looked up to because he was a tough guy who could fight and who wasn't afraid to break into anybody's pigeon cage. Raising pigeons was a favorite pastime for most of the boys in my community, and my brothers and I were no exception. When I responded that of course I remembered, he went on to say that what I and everyone else didn't know was that every time we played, Robert would get him and take him to the pigeon cage. He clearly recalled the first occasion when the molestation began. Despite the fact that it seemed foreign to him, I think that's the word he used. Robert, who by the way was about 10 years older than Papa, convinced him to keep what was happening between them. But what is most revealing about the conversation we had is how he, in a very emotional and unambiguous manner, described his evolving feelings. I will never forget what he said, and I can quote him here. "After a while, Tony, the molestation seemed normal to me. And after some point in time, I came to realize that I was fascinated with the penis." So unlike most of those in the gay and lesbian community who believe they were born with the predisposition to be gay, my brother was convinced that it was the molestation that caused his homosexuality. Okay, now your task is to respond to the story and relate it to the nature versus nurture argument. Do you agree with my brother's opinion? Do you see it differently? Explain why. And feel free to support your response with any research that you may be aware of.